We've done the final form, and it's basically going to explain what the countries are going to be paying in tariffs. And it's very important. It's a lot of money for the country, but we're giving them a bargain. Because if I went by the true deficits or by other ways of measuring, it could be a lot more. We don't want to. I don't want to stretch it too much. We want to keep it pretty reasonable. And I think it's very reasonable.
This marks a departure from earlier plans to negotiate individual trade deals. Trump cited the complexity of negotiating with over 170 countries as a key reason behind this blanket tariff strategy. Tariffs will now range from 10 to 50% depending on the country's trade engagement with the United States. However, European Union believes it is a challenge to reach an agreement on such high volume of trade with the US. EU Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen said that EU member states will be prepared for a no-deal scenario.
We are aiming at the 9th of July. It's a huge task because we have the largest trade volume globally between the European Union and the United States, 1.5 trillion euros, very complex and a huge quantity. Indeed, what we are aiming at is an agreement in principle. Because, I mean, such a volume in 90 days, an agreement in detail, impossible.
According to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, around 100 countries are expected to receive a 10% reciprocal tariff rate, which is down from the originally planned 123 jurisdictions. And these include mostly small countries and territories. Major economies, however, are facing stiffer rates. The European Union is all set for a 20% plus tariff rate. Countries not engaged in talks face even higher rates, 36% for Thailand, 47% for Madagascar, and a steep 50% for Lesotho. Notably, the UK secured a 10% tariff rate in a May agreement with added relief for specific sectors like automobiles and aircraft engines. And well, joining us live on the broadcast is Mark Brolin, geoeconomic and geopolitical strategist and author. Welcome to Race to Power, Mr. Brolin.
Thank you.
And he's joining us live from London, of course. First up, what do you make of Trump's tariff letter? Basically, Trump administration's approach of sending out letter with or without any kind of negotiations before the deadline.
Yeah, I think this is very much a poker game, and I think we're approaching the end of it. But given that Trump is what he is, there is still uncertainty. But under normal circumstances, if there was somebody else in the White House, this would be much less uncertain because everyone would expect that it will come together in the final days. But it's actually not unusual that it actually does only finish towards the end, and that's what most people are expecting also now. And I think there will probably it is still most likely there will either be an extension or something will come together within a few days.
So given the complexity of the trade deals, you do think that the US will likely extend the tariff free spots for some countries?
Well, yes and no. I think if nothing happens, I mean, there is personal feelings in this also. We know that Donald Trump doesn't like the EU very much. So if he's not in some way mitigated, if he's not given anything, there might not be so many changes. But if they do generally want to give him some concessions of some kind, I think he will be open to extending this time period, and that will be a few more months, and then something will come in the end. But I think, but Brussels know they have to give him concessions at this point. US is definitely the stronger part. There was a time period after the so-called Liberation Day when lots of money left the US and went into Europe, but then there was a U-turn because people are now seeing that actually prices went down in the US, so they were priced a bit lower, and then people thought many investors thought it was a good money situation in the US, so it came back. So Trump's hand is strengthened once again, and he knows that, of course. That's why he's sort of, he's in the game between Ursula von der Leyen and Trump. He has the strong hand.
Right, because as of now, Mr. Brolin, there is no deal between the US and the EU, and Ursula von der Leyen has clearly said that we are prepared for a no-deal scenario. In your analysis, what are the economic options that Europe has if a trade deal is not reached?
Well, it will be a disaster for the Europe, especially if there is no trade deal. Since the pandemic, 5 years since then, US GDP has gone up around 12%. But Eurozone has only gone up 5.8, and Germany, the so-called engine of Europe, has gone up only 0.3%. So it would be much more disastrous, and that's what Trump knows that. But then again, it wouldn't be good for the US either. And if he doesn't see that at this point, that US would also face a backlash, then he might see it when the markets correct him, as happened a few months ago, when money started leaving the US and bond markets reacted fiercely. So we might end up in that scenario again. No trade deal, and the markets correct him, and then he will back away. He doesn't respect Brussels very much, but he does respect markets.
Right, Mr. Brolin, thank you so much for joining us from London here on Race to Power.
Pleasure.
Well, after weeks of back and forth, closed-door meetings and open demonstrations, Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill has become a reality. Both congressional chambers have narrowly voted in favor of the budget bill. The U.S. president hailed his big, beautiful bill's historic passage. Trump will be signing the bill later in the evening amid U.S. Independence Day celebrations.
The phenomenal victory we achieved. So we're signing at about 5 o'clock, and at about 5 o'clock we're going to have B-2s and F-22s and F-35s flying right over the White House. And the Speaker and I and John Thune, we're all there together with most Republican senators and congressmen and women. And it's going to be a great day. So we'll be signing with those beautiful planes flying right over our heads.
Well, till the last minute, Democrats fought hard to stop the bill. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries delivered an 8.5-hour speech ahead of the final vote. But the Democrat leader was unable to convince Republican lawmakers against supporting Trump's proposed budget. The final vote tally shows only 2 Republicans voting no, while the GOP was able to successfully quell internal rebellion and get reluctant lawmakers to rally behind the big, beautiful bill. The $4.5 trillion budget bill has drawn severe criticism from several experts and low-income American households as well. Many in U.S. fear the implications of massive tax cuts to Medicaid and nutrition programs. Those against the bill have also criticized tax cuts to America's rich and an expected $3.3 trillion increase to national debt. And well, joining us live on the show is our correspondent Susan Tehrani, joining us live from New York. Hi, Susan. The president clearly got the bill passed, touted as the big, beautiful bill that we've been talking about for the past few days. How big of a victory is this for the president, and what kind of reactions are you gathering from the Americans on this?
It's a huge victory because this is really Donald Trump's blueprint legislation moving forward. And most Americans, while some are concerned about those slowing in entitlement programs, most will be happy to hear that it's an extension of those tax breaks, his first term tax breaks in 2017. So most households will now avoid that automatic tax hike on the one hand, and it raises the deduction for them on the other. Credit for tips, credit for overtime work, and credit for first-time car buyers as well. And then, you have the raising of the cap of local and state taxes. This will also help middle-class families because in high-tax states like New York and California, state and local taxes were sometimes even higher than the federal tax. But nonetheless, it's not a perfect bill. Over 10 years, it is expected to raise the deficit by $3.3 trillion. And that's where the criticism comes. For example, you saw it came from Elon Musk as well. And then more progressive Democrats, again, are concerned that those entitlement programs like Medicaid and food stamp, the eligibility will be a little more restricted. So this is where we stand right now. Mixed feelings, but nonetheless, more Americans are really breathing a sigh of relief on this 4th of July that their taxes aren't going to increase, because if this bill didn't go in effect, then the 2017 tax cuts would expire in 2026 and everyone's taxes would skyrocket.
Right, Susan. Thanks for getting us the latest on the show. A new political movement could be taking shape, and it's coming from one of the most outspoken and unconventional voices in American business, Elon Musk. According to a new Qantas Insight survey, 40% of voters say they'd likely support a new political party proposed by the Tesla and SpaceX CEO. The idea is perhaps resonating particularly with Republican men. Overall, the poll reveals a nation increasingly open to an alternative beyond the traditional two-party system. The numbers are striking. 23% of Republican men say that they are very likely to support Musk's party. Another 34% say that they would be somewhat likely to back it. Democrats, on the other hand, remain skeptical, with over a third of both men and women saying they are not at all likely to join the cause. Still, the overall sentiment shows that nearly half of all voters are open to a third party, a sign of the growing political divide and dissatisfaction with the status quo. Musk is calling his political movement the America Party, a name he says represents a home for voters disillusioned by both Republicans and Democrats. He has also hailed the Qantas Insight survey, calling it encouraging. While the vote banks shuffle between the red and the blue camps, other parties also exist in this mix. As of January 2025, there are at least 55 distinct ballot-qualified political parties in the U.S. Data also shows that there are 238 state-level parties. However, there are 3 key minor parties which have a presence in more than 10 American states. And they are the Libertarian Party, currently in 38 states, the Green Party in 23 states, and the Constitution Party in 12 states. Despite the long list of parties representing a spectrum of political ideologies, American voters have given overwhelming prominence to the Democrat and the Republican Party. Musk's idea to float a party first surfaced in early June, shortly after Musk launched a fiery public critique of Congress for passing a multi-trillion-dollar tax and spending package. The bill, which raises the national debt ceiling by a record $5 trillion, sparked a wave of criticism from Musk, who argued that both parties had abandoned fiscal responsibility. In a series of social media posts, Musk blasted lawmakers for his words, leading the country into debt slavery. Musk also vowed to hold them accountable. He said, and I quote here, "Every member of Congress who campaigned on reducing government spending and then immediately voted for the biggest debt increase in history should hang their head in shame." But the backlash did not stop with Congress. The clash turned personal when Trump pushed back, accusing Musk of sour grapes. Trump suggested that Musk's criticism had more to do with the bill's removal of electric vehicle mandates that had previously benefited Tesla. Musk, for his part, denies the claim and insists that his motivation is about protecting the country's economic future and not Tesla's bottom line. So the question is, where does this leave the United States of America? A politically active billionaire with a massive online following, a growing bloc of voters hungry for change, and a brewing rivalry between two powerful figures on the American right. Well, UK lawmaker Zara Sultana has quit the Labour Party. The Member of Parliament announced a decision in a social media post. Sultana announcing a resignation and decision to form a new party with former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn. In a lengthy statement, Sultana said that the new party would be formed with other independent lawmakers and activists with an aim to challenge, and I'm quoting here, broken promises of a two-party system. Referring to the situation in Gaza, Sultana goes on to accuse the ruling party of being an active participant in genocide. Last year, the former Labour leader was removed from her position as party whip after backing a move to scrap the two-child benefit cap. So far, Jeremy Corbyn has not confirmed the announcement of him and Sultana forming a new party together. However, Corbyn has hinted at a political alternative in the works without giving too many details. In the past, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has described the situation in Gaza, and I'm quoting here, appalling and intolerable. While Starmer has urged for a ceasefire and release of hostages in Hamas captivity, he has also maintained Israel's right to self-defense. More recently, in Israel's war with Iran as well. And while joining us live is our correspondent Ollie Barrett, joining us live from London. Hi, Ollie. First up, what are the reactions coming in on this, not just from the political spectrum, but also from the commoners there? And secondly, will this new party get support in the UK if it is formed?
Well, that's the key question, if it is formed. And the reason I say that is because we have heard now from Jeremy Corbyn after the announcement from Zara Sultana overnight. There was notable silence from him, but he has now said that discussions are ongoing about the forming of a new left-wing party. So not quite the same as the formulation set out by Zara Sultana, who insisted that she was forming a new left-wing party and that she was going to co-lead it with Jeremy Corbyn. That doesn't appear to be something that he is confirming just yet. So all sorts of questions about exactly what this party may end up looking like, may end up being called, may end up who it may end up being led by. No clarity on that coming from Jeremy Corbyn at the moment, although he has praised Zara Sultana for the action that she is taking. One of the key elements to this is that Zara Sultana, it has been reported, would have been about to have been thrown out potentially of the Labour Party by its executive. Now, she denies that that is the reason that she is forming this new left-wing party, but the key question going forward will be how much support she can attract from within the existing Labour Party to join her, from some of those independent MPs who sit in the House of Commons, who also have been thrown out of the Labour Party or had their whip removed in Parliament, and that all very much remains to be seen. And I think that therefore flows into the other part of your question about wider public support for such a movement. It's very difficult to predict or quantify that at the moment, given that we have very little detail at this point about exactly what this party is going to look like. Zara Sultana said that she was making this move because she believes the existing Labour government hasn't been able to lead to a rise in living standards for British people. It isn't improving their daily lives, she says. Now, the UK government rejects that. The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, today has been rejecting that characterisation from Zara Sultana, and Downing Street today saying that the only way it believes that change can be delivered for the UK is through the existing Labour government. So that's another remaining question, how much of a challenge this left-wing party may pose for the Labour government. As I say, given the rest of the uncertainties around all of this, so much remains to be seen.
Right, Ollie. Thanks very much for joining us on Race to Power. Well, the latest crackdown on the media and free speech in Afghanistan, the Taliban government has banned all forms of political debate on news and media outlets. The Taliban regime said that media organizations in Afghanistan must obtain prior permission from the newly formed Political Program Oversight Committee to publish or air any kind of content, political content. According to Taliban's Ministry of Information and Culture, the committee will monitor all forms of political content, conduct legal reviews and enforce sanctions against non-compliant media outlets. The framework titled Management of Political Programs in Afghanistan apply to all forms of political content published in print, broadcast, digital and even social media. Furthermore, the Taliban has warned experts from presenting views that are against their policies. It has also mandated experts to obtain identification cards from the Taliban's Directorate of Broadcast Affairs. In addition, the Afghan government has made individual approval mandatory for guest speakers. The Taliban further warned media organizations that their licenses will be revoked if they violate the new rules. The new rules have also raised fears of a complete return of the regime's repressive past. Chaos broke out in Bolivia's Congress during Thursday's session that turned into a brawl over controversial lithium deals. And these were the scenes as lawmakers were heard shouting, shoving, and even hurling stacks of paper at congressional leaders. The uproar came during a heated debate over controversial lithium deals with Chinese and Russian companies that could bring in $2 billion in investment.
Informe técnico.
Opposition lawmakers and supporters of former President Evo Morales disrupted the session, targeting Energy Minister Alejandro Gallardo as he tried to defend the lithium contracts. Demonstrators said they feared the deals would not benefit local communities and would cause environmental damage.
We want conditions so that the local people from the more than 50 communities around and near the salt flat can have a dignified life. They are people like us, but if they lack essential resources, water, or face contamination, they will not live well. The government is not interested in that. It only cares about its pockets.
Video showed opposition lawmaker Maria Zalzarar being attacked mid-speech while another lawmaker ripped away an umbrella that a chamber leader was using to deflect flying objects.
A los que están visitando, por favor, les pido.
And well, some news from Peru now, where public anger is boiling after President Dina Boluarte's salary was quietly doubled at a time when nearly 1 in 3 Peruvians are living in poverty. The government announced that President Boluarte will now receive over $10,000 a month, which is up from a previous salary of around which was $4,400. That's nearly 30 times the country's minimum wage. The justification? According to Peru's economy minister, her compensation was among the lowest for heads of state in South America.
The weighted average of the salaries of 12 presidents and this projection of what would be an extension of executive power positions has been compared, and the result is the value approved today in a decree of 35,568 soles, USD 10,000 per month.
The reaction on the streets has been swift and sharp. Pensioners and working class citizens expressed outrage, pointing to crumbling public services, struggling hospitals and rising poverty.
It seems illogical to me. I think this only happens in Peru. The average Peruvian lives on minimum wage. Ed's note. In 2025, the Peruvian minimum wage is 1,130 soles, USD 317, and I don't think she should be doing this. She's about to leave office, and there's no need to raise her salary. She should do more for hospitals, like visiting the INEN, National Institute of Neoplastic Diseases, and seeing what's happening there with all the children and patients. That's the reality of our country.
Peru's economy has been slowly recovering from demonstrations and recession, but hardship remains. Nearly 30% of the population still lives in poverty. This figure cast a long shadow over this pay hike. President Boluarte has been in office since late 2022. That's after her predecessor, Pedro Castillo, was removed and arrested. But her popularity has plummeted, with polls showing approval ratings between just 2 to 4%. She also faces allegations of corruption, including unexplained luxury purchases and mishandling of deadly anti-government demonstrations. Opposition lawmakers are moving to block the race, calling it a tone-deaf move by a deeply unpopular leader. President Boluarte is expected to finish her term in July 2026, with elections set for next April. And with that, we slip into a very short break, but stay with us. You are watching WION World is One. Stay tuned.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
No room for human error at Wimbledon this year. The second Indian in space hitches a ride in a capsule called Grace. Secure your phone, do your best. There's some pretty malicious stuff out there. Malware and viruses will put it to the test.
Whatever you do, don't confide in chat. It's not your therapist, just an AI quack. With me, Nikita Singh, only on WION World is One at these times.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Hello and welcome. You're watching WION World is One. My name is Mohammed Saleh, and let's start this broadcast by taking a quick look as to what is making headlines at this hour. The Kremlin has said that it sees no immediate diplomatic way out of the war in Ukraine, hours after launching its largest ever drone and missile barrage of its invasion. Now, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says that he spoke with President Donald Trump and discussed air defenses and agreed to work on increasing capabilities to defend the sky. The United Nations nuclear watchdog inspectors have left Iran, according to the